My name is Claire. I am 26 years old. I work at a small clothing shop in town. I fold clothes, help customers, and clean the store. It is not a big job, but it pays the bills. I met Jason on a Sunday afternoon. I was buying coffee at the train station. He stood behind me in the line. He smiled and said, "I like your jacket." I smiled back and said, "Thank you." That's how it started. He asked for my name. He asked where I worked. He said he liked talking to me. We sat on a bench and talked for almost an hour. He said he worked in the city at an office. He looked nice. He wore a blue shirt and dark jeans. He spoke with a calm voice. The next day, he sent me a message. He said, "It was nice to meet you, Claire." I smiled. I felt happy. We started to talk every day. After 1 week, he asked me to dinner. We went to a small restaurant. He opened the door for me. He pulled out my chair. He asked about my family. I told him I lived alone. He said he lived alone too. I liked him. He was kind and funny. He made me feel special. After dinner, he walked me home. He didn't try to kiss me. He just said, "Good night, Claire," and smiled. We started dating. He called me every evening. He sent me good morning texts. He brought me small gifts. One time he gave me a bracelet. Another time he brought cookies. I started to feel something real. I told my best friend, "I think he could be the one." She smiled and said, "Be careful, Claire. Take your time." But I didn't listen. I felt sure. Jason never let me visit his place. He always came to mine. I asked once, "Can I see where you live?" He said, "It's small and messy. I don't want you to see it yet." I said, "Okay." We dated for 4 months. We went for walks. We went to the movies. We laughed a lot. I was happy. One Saturday night, we sat on the sofa and watched a film. I leaned my head on his shoulder. I said, "I'm glad I met you." He said, "Me too." Then he kissed my forehead, but something changed after that night. The next week, he didn't text much. He didn't call. When I called, he said he was busy. I said, "Are you okay?" He said, "Yes, just tired." I felt something was wrong. One evening, I went to the shop early. I finished work at 4 p.m. and walked toward the bus stop. I saw Jason across the street. He didn't see me. He was with someone, a woman. She held his hand. My heart stopped. I watched as they walked into a cafe. I couldn't move. I stood there. I felt cold. I crossed the street and stood outside the cafe. I looked through the window. They were laughing. Jason touched her hair. He looked happy. I felt sick. I turned and walked away. My hands were shaking. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. Not there. Not in front of people. At home, I sat on the floor and asked myself, why? I didn't understand. He said he loved me. He gave me a bracelet. He kissed me. He held my hand. Was it all a lie? I didn't sleep that night. I looked at my phone. No message from him. Nothing. The next day, I waited. I waited for his call. It never came. At 6 p.m., I sent him a message. Are we okay? He didn't reply. The next day, I went to work like normal, but my heart wasn't normal. It was heavy. At lunch, I told my coworker Rachel. She said, you should ask him. You need answers. That night, I called him. He picked up. Hi, Claire, he said. I asked, can we talk? He said, I'm busy. I said, I saw you. He was quiet. I saw you with another woman, I said again. He said, Claire, I can explain. I waited. She's someone I used to date. We're just friends now. I said, you held her hand. He said, it's not what you think. I hung up the phone. Tears came fast. I felt small. I felt stupid. The next morning, he came to my shop. He looked nervous. He said, can we talk? I didn't want to, but I said, okay. We walked to the back room. I crossed my arms. He said, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I asked, are you seeing her? He looked down. Then he said, yes. I felt like the floor was gone. I said, since when? He said, before I met you, but I didn't know I'd fall for you too. I shook my head. So you had two of us at the same time, he said. I didn't plan it. I laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. You lied, Jason, every day. He said, I care about you. I said, no, you cared about yourself. He said, I didn't want to lose you. I said, you already did. He left. I sat in the back room for 10 minutes. I didn't cry. I felt empty. Later that night, my friend came over. I told her everything. She said, you didn't do anything wrong, Claire. I said, then why does it hurt so much? She held my hand. Because you love someone who didn't love you the right way. That night, I took off the bracelet Jason gave me. I put it in a drawer. I didn't throw it away. Not yet, but I couldn't wear it anymore. I went to bed and stared at the ceiling. He lied to me, and maybe he lied to her too. Before I share the rest of my story, I want to ask you something. Where are you listening from? Sometimes I wonder if someone out there truly hears me, someone who understands what I'm feeling. It gives me strength to know I'm not alone. So please tell me in the comments. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy heart. I did not sleep much. My eyes were tired and my head hurt. I sat on my bed and looked at the wall. Everything felt quiet. I could still hear Jason's voice in my head. I remembered every lie, every message, every moment. I went to work like normal. I took the bus, walked into the shop, and put on my name tag. Rachel was already folding shirts. She looked at me and said, "Claire, are you okay?" I gave her a small smile and said, "I'm just tired. I didn't want to talk about it. Not yet." I tried to keep busy. I helped customers. I arranged shoes on the shelf. I cleaned the mirror. But my mind was not at work. I kept thinking about Jason. I thought about that girl at the cafe, her soft smile, her hand in his hand. She looked happy. I wondered if she still felt that way. Did she know the truth now? Or was she still in the dark, like I was just a few days ago? After work, I didn't go straight home. I walked through town. I passed the cafe again. I looked inside, hoping to see her again. She wasn't there. I stood outside for a moment, feeling lost. Then I kept walking. That evening, I sat in my kitchen and made some toast. I didn't want a full dinner. My stomach didn't feel good. I ate slowly and stared at the wall. I remembered something Jason said to me one night. "I've never met someone like you." I believed him. I smiled that night and said, "Me too." Now those words felt like nothing. Later, I opened my phone and looked through my messages with Jason. I read them slowly. So many sweet words, so many fake promises. "You're the best thing in my life. I'll never hurt you. You can trust me." I deleted all of them. I didn't want to read lies anymore. That night, I had trouble sleeping again. I kept thinking about the other woman. I didn't even know her name, but she was in my head. I felt sorry for her. I wondered what Jason told her. Did he promise her the same things? Did he say he loved her too? I didn't want her to suffer more lies. I didn't want her to keep believing in something false. The next day at work, Rachel walked over to me during our break. She said, "Claire, you've been quiet. Want to talk?" I looked at her and said, "I found out Jason has another girlfriend." She looked shocked. "Oh no, are you sure?" I nodded. "I saw them together." Rachel sat beside me. "What did he say?" I looked down. "He said he didn't plan it. He said he fell for both of us. Rachel shook her head. That's not love, Claire. That's lies. I sighed. I feel so stupid. She touched my arm. You're not stupid. You just trusted the wrong person. That evening, I made a decision. I needed to talk to her. I needed to tell her the truth. I didn't want her to find out the hard way like I did. I remembered the cafe. I remembered the time. I decided to go back and see if she would come again. On Saturday, I dressed in simple clothes and walked to the cafe at the same time I saw her last week. I ordered a cup of tea and sat near the window. My heart was beating fast. I looked around. I waited. After 30 minutes, she walked in. She looked just like before. Long dark hair, green coat, calm face. She walked to the counter and ordered a drink. Then she sat at a small table near the corner, alone. I stood up and walked over to her. My hands were shaking. I said, "Hi, can I sit with you?" She looked up, surprised. "Do I know you?" I shook my head. "No, but we both know Jason." Her face changed. She blinked and stared at me. "What?" she said. I sat down. "I'm Claire. I was with Jason for 4 months." She looked confused. "I've been with him for a year," she said slowly. "Are you sure we're talking about the same person?" I nodded. Tall, short dark hair, soft voice, always wears blue. Her eyes grew wide. "That's him." We sat in silence for a moment. I could see she was trying to understand. I said, "I saw you with him at this cafe last week. That's how I found out." She put her hand on her chest and said, "Oh my God, I had no idea." I said, "Me neither, until that day." She looked like she might cry, but she didn't. She took a deep breath and said, "My name is Emma." I said, "I'm sorry to tell you this way." She shook her head. "I'm glad you told me." We talked for almost an hour. We shared stories. I told her how I met him. She told me how he used to text her all day. Then she said something that hurt. He told me he was working late last Friday, but he was probably with you. I nodded. He told me the same thing 2 weeks ago. We both sat there, feeling a mix of sadness and anger. Emma looked down at her cup and said, "I feel like such a fool." I said, "Me too." Then she looked up and said, "But I'm glad we met. At least now I know the truth." I stood up and said, "You didn't do anything wrong." She gave a small smile. "Neither did you." We walked outside together. The sun was starting to set. The sky was soft orange. Emma said, "He doesn't deserve either of us." I said, "No, he doesn't." Then she said, "I'm going to end it tonight." I nodded. I already did. She gave me a small hug. "Thank you for your honesty," I said. "Thank you for listening." We said goodbye and walked in different directions. That night, Jason sent me a message. "I miss you. Please talk to me." I didn't reply. He called. I didn't answer. Then another message. "Claire, please, I made a mistake." I turned off my phone. I didn't want to hear his lies anymore. For the first time in many days, I slept well. I didn't dream about him. I didn't wake up sad. I felt calm. I felt strong. The next morning, I opened the drawer and took out the bracelet he gave me. I looked at it for a long time. Then I threw it in the trash. I didn't need it anymore. It was not love. It was just a memory and a lie. 1 week passed. I didn't speak to Jason again. He sent more messages, but I didn't reply. Each time I saw his name on my phone, I felt cold inside. I used to feel happy when he texted. Now I felt nothing. I was tired of lies. I was done with pain. At work, I smiled more. I laughed a little. Rachel noticed. She said, "You look better, Claire." And I said, "I feel better too." I meant it. On Saturday, I got a message from Emma. She said, "It's been a strange week. I still think about him, but I'm okay." I replied, "Same here. It still hurts, but less now." We talked a little more. We weren't friends, not really, but we understood each other. That was enough. One afternoon, I went for a walk. The sky was gray. The air was cool. I passed the same cafe again. I stood outside and looked in, just for a second. Jason wasn't there, but I still remembered everything. I didn't walk inside. I just smiled and kept going. Later that week, I saw Jason from a distance. I was crossing the street. He was on the other side, standing near a shop. He didn't see me. I didn't stop. I didn't wave. I just kept walking. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I was okay. That night, I thought about how far I had come. When I first found out, I cried for days. I didn't eat much. I couldn't sleep. I felt small. I felt broken. Now I was standing again. I was strong. I started doing small things that made me feel good. I bought flowers for my table. I played music in the morning. I wore my favorite shirt. I even called my mom and talked for an hour. It felt nice to talk about something else, something normal. One Sunday, I cleaned my whole apartment. I opened the windows and let the fresh air in. I moved things around. I took down old photos. One of them had Jason in it. I stared at it for a while. Then I threw it away. It didn't feel sad. It felt right. That afternoon, I met Rachel for lunch. We sat outside and drank tea. She asked, "Do you think you'll ever trust someone again?" I looked at the sky and said, "Maybe, but not too soon." Rachel smiled. "That's okay. Take your time." We talked about work and funny customers. We laughed a lot. It was a good day. The next week, I saw Emma again, not at the cafe, at the market. We both reached for the same pack of apples. We looked at each other and laughed. "Hi," I said. "Hey," she said. We stood there for a moment. Then she said, "It's strange, isn't it?" "Yes," I said. "But I'm glad to see you." She smiled. "I feel better now. I even started painting again. I stopped when I was with him." I said, "He made me stop reading for fun." Emma nodded. "He took a lot from us." I looked at her and said, "But not anymore." She said, "No, not anymore." We didn't talk long, just a few minutes, but when we said goodbye, I felt proud. We both walked away, and we didn't look back. The days got longer, the weather got warmer. I went for walks in the evening. I smiled at neighbors. I felt calm. One night, I sat on my sofa and looked at the moon outside. I thought about everything that happened. I thought about love. I thought about lies. I thought about trust. And then I thought about myself. I didn't need someone to make me feel strong. I was already strong. Jason fooled me, yes. He lied. He played with my heart, but I came out stronger. I learned something important. I learned how to walk away from pain. I learned how to choose peace. I didn't forgive him, not yet. Maybe never. But I forgave myself for trusting him, for believing him, for loving him. That was not wrong. It was human. He made the choice to lie, not me. One morning, I woke up early. The sun was shining. I made tea and stood by the window. I watched people walk by on the street. I smiled. My heart still remembered the pain, but it also remembered the truth. The truth saved me, and in time I knew I would be ready to love again. But next time, I would look for honesty. I would wait for someone who made me feel safe, not small. Someone who gave love, not confusion. I was not afraid of being alone, because now I knew something important. Being alone was better than being lied to. And I was not really alone. I had myself, and that was enough.